consider, in my tradition, which is Christianity, one of the seasons of the year in Christianity is a season called Lent, which is intended as a season of fasting and of self-restraint and of particular inward spiritual focus. And what we've seen is increasing numbers of Christians recognizing that some of their traditional practices during Lent can have ecological benefits in significant ways, and yet they continue those practices primarily as an expression of their faith, and they're very pleased that the impact also benefits the earth. But the primary motivation is one related to religion, which it seems to me is somewhat parallel to what you're saying here, and speaks, I think, to the potential within traditions such as Hinduism to have such a wide impact.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Same spirit. Yeah, that what they're doing is just practicing their religious practices, and whatever byproducts is helping the environment. Yes.
Now, as we transition to this next slide, I just want to let everybody know that we have been getting your questions. We'll have a time when it's going to be when I'll pose them to Dr. Jain in just a couple of minutes. So just because I haven't lifted up your questions yet doesn't mean that I haven't gotten them. So thank you for sending them in. And if you have any questions, now is a good time to send them in through the chat function because we've got about 11 or 12 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get as many questions answered as possible. So Pankaj, tell us about the Bill communities and their sacred groves.
Yeah, this came as a kind of a very pleasant, interesting coincidence. I was just living in one part of India in my research to do with Bishnois and Swadhyayis. I was just living with my parents, and where I was living, I found that a lot of trees from that particular town in India, a lot of trees were gone, and it's all about industrial development. And yet, when I was traveling, I found that there was a small island of trees, and I was so curious, why are these trees saved while everything else is gone? And I went inside that small island of trees, and I found that there was a very, very small temple inside those trees. And because of those small temples dedicated to several Hindu deities, the monkey god, so-called monkey god Hanuman, and so-called elephant god Ganesha, and those so on, because of those small temples, surrounding trees are saved. Because of the faith in these deities, all the surrounding trees are saved. So those are called as the sacred groves. And there are thousands and thousands of sacred groves even today in today's India. They are all these trees are saved because of the faith in these deities. So that's another very interesting example of Hindu tradition in its long existence. Sacred groves have sometimes scholars have called them hotspots of biodiversity, because these are the areas where all these different kinds of species of animals and trees are coexisting peacefully for thousands of years. So that's another example of communally protected areas of lands where these things have been, where hunting is prohibited and logging is prohibited, and so on.
So that's a wonderful story, and just one question which I think it makes sense to pose now from one of our participants. If you could repeat very briefly the story of what it is that motivates the Bishnoi to hug the trees. You'd explained it briefly before. If you could repeat that, I think there are several who would like to hear that again.
Yeah, I think I missed it. Let me add one more story here. So when Bishnoi tradition itself was founded in 1453 or so, the founding guru, Guru Jambheshwar, was sitting in his meditation, and he had a profound spiritual experience. Actually, what happened was, just before he started his penance and his austere practices, there was a very severe drought in that part of India. So for 5 years, there was not a single drop of rain in that part of India. It was already a desert, and there was no rain, and people were so desperate, they started killing their animals for their flesh. They started killing all the trees probably for food or for fuel and so on. So the entire ecology of that part of India was in complete chaos. And Guru Jambheshwar, the founding guru of Bishnoi, had a profound spiritual experience in which he realized the interconnection of humans with the trees and with animals and so on. So then when he came out of his experience, he laid down his teachings, which became the Bishnoi teachings. He laid down 29 rules. So 29 is the literal meaning of the word Bishnoi also. So that's one story. So And then in my research, then I went to some geographers at Arizona State University and Ohio State University, and they confirmed that yes, there was a severe drought in early 15th century, and which probably sort of was the genesis of Bishnoi tradition itself. And when he laid down these 29 rules, Bishnoi started following those rules very, very sort of sacredly. And after more than 150 years, then this is the most powerful story in which 363 women and men, women, and children led by Amrita Devi, the woman who was the first to sacrifice her life when she hugged this tree of Khejarli, when the soldiers of Jodhpur came down to her village when they were looking for this firewood, and she was the first to sacrifice her life, and then more than 300 people were killed in their effort to save the trees. So that's, I think, the most powerful story I think ever heard or ever lived by any part of any community in the world, where hundreds of people died just to save some trees. So then that's again not just one story, but throughout their long history of these last 4 or 5 centuries, there are many, many such examples in which Bishnois have ran after these poachers and hunters and soldiers whoever comes in their villages, whoever starts hunting, Bishnois would be the first to go and catch the hunters and give to the police or fight the long legal battles and always win the battles and continue to try to take care of their natural resources, their animals, their birds, their lands, their trees, and so on and so forth. So that was a Bishnois story again.
So thank you. It's a wonderful story, and I think a tremendously important one. Let me pose a couple of additional questions to you, Pankaj, that have been sent in. One question is, one of our participants was curious about what is happening in Hindu temples around the country, around the United States in relationship to the environment, and perhaps in addition to that, anything in a couple of questions from people in the Mid-Atlantic region, where there is a large Hindu community. So I think these questions come from people who would be very interested in making common cause with Hindu leaders who have a commitment around these issues. So what sort of activity are you seeing in the Hindu community in the United States and around the environment?
That's an excellent example, and I'm so glad that this has been brought out. So what Hindus have done is all the major Hindu groups, community groups in this country have come together as part of the faith-based initiative started by President George W. Bush and continued by President Obama. So last weekend of July, they're all coming together at the White House to showcase all the things that they've been doing for different philanthropic work that they've been doing with different communities. And one of the major initiatives that I'm part of is this ecological initiative, in which we want to start the process of greening the temples all over the country. We want to go to each temple and work with them how to green the temple. I think your own efforts, Fletcher, would be very, very important in this regard, and we are already working with you as well, Green Faith, and similarly other groups have come together. There is Oxford Center of Hindu Studies in England, for example. They have started a Bhumi project in which ARC, Alliance for Religion and Conservation, they have come together. They will be part of this initiative. UNDP, United Nations Development Program, they will be part of this initiative. There are already a list of 10 Hindu temples in this country who have already gone completely green. They have installed solar panels, and many other temples are in the process of doing similar things. There are some temples who have started community gardens, for example, in Dallas area where I live in right now. So there are several such examples where temples have realized that it's one thing to do rituals in the temple, and it's to go beyond doing just the rituals inside the temples, and to do all these, to be more aware of greening the rituals. For example, Fletcher, you and I and Dr. Ved Chaudhary, we all came together and wrote that document how to green the rituals inside the temple. So how to be more aware of natural resources that are being consumed in running these temples, and even in doing the rituals. And Hinduism already has all these elements, as we have been discussing. Even in the rituals, Hindus use all kinds of leaves and fruits and water and fire and whatnot from the nature. And just to be more sort of conscious, tangible conscious about how the relationship between humans and the human rituals and the natural resources is so powerful. So to remind them, even in their rituals. So that will be part of the initiative as well. So these things have started, and I think we all have to work together and continue to do this.
One final question that we've received, Pankaj, is one listener was curious if you could say a few words about Vandana Shiva and her leadership, and perhaps explain to everybody who she is and the sort of work that she's done.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, she's one of my most favorite authors and activists and scientists. She was I think originally she was a nuclear physicist, and by her exposure to different things that corporates have done to our food and to our agricultural practices, she was so inspired that she left that career, and now she runs an NGO in India called Navadanya, which means the 9 seeds. And she is in a major way all over India. She is in the process of collecting all kinds of seeds and to save their species and to grow local organic food, even in several gardens and farms, small farms that I think are part of this network led by Dr. Vandana Shiva. She also comes very often to universities in this country and speaks about different things that corporates are doing against our food, how they're destroying our agricultural practices, and our locally organic way of food is to be encouraged. And Dr. Vandana Shiva, I think, is a very important part of this movement to inspire more and more people to go towards organic, locally grown, healthy food. And dozens of her books and articles are all over internet, and many of her speeches are on YouTube. Very, very nice to listen to them and to view them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the close of our time together, and before I say a final word of thanks, Pankaj, we will be, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, circulating a link to this recording, which will include video access to the PowerPoint slides to everyone who's registered for this webinar, and we'll also be placing that link tomorrow on the home page of our website. It'll be the first photograph that you'll see when you log on to GreenFaith's website is a photograph of Dr. Jain, and if you click on that, it'll take you through to a place where you'll be able to get that recording. So this information will be there and be available for you. I've listed here not only Dr. Jain's email address, but 2 related websites, one being his faculty profile web page at the University of North Texas, and then secondly, the Facebook page for Dharma and Ecology, for his book, Dharma and Ecology of Hindu Communities. So I hope you'll take a look at those and feel free to reach out to Dr. Jain with any further questions that you have, or to us. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will, in addition to sending you the link to the recording, also send you the link so that you can download Dr. Jain's 10 Hindu teachings on the environment, which are a wonderful summary of many of the things that he said this evening. So in closing, Pankaj, thank you so very much for taking the time to share your wisdom with us and your insight. We're very grateful for it, and obviously we think your leadership and your example is tremendously important. You're a very articulate spokesman for what the Hindu and Jain traditions also have to say about these issues, and we're very grateful for your taking the time with us this evening.
And all thanks to Professor Harper. You have been doing all these great events and all the excellent websites that GreenFaith has, and all the great activities and events that you have been organizing for so many years now, that we are thankful for you to connect the dots and to connect all of us with, and to remind us of all the great teachings of all the world religions. So thanks to you as well, Professor.
Well, it's our pleasure. We're all in it together. So we've come to the close of our time together. Many thanks again to Dr. Pankaj Jain. Many thanks to all of you for joining us, and we hope that we'll see you on another GreenFaith webinar in the future. Thanks to everybody, and have a good night.